It's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yo, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Bumping through your broadcast. Grab a chair and fill your glass. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yo, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Bumping through your broadcast. Grab a chair and fill your glass.
Hey, welcome to the Really Charlie Podcast. My name is Charlie Perry, along with my co-host Paula Young is here, and we are doing our show, Fentanyl, Facts and Stories. We have a special guest, as you see down below, that's Jenn Budd. She brings a lot of experience, 30 years in the Border Patrol special agent, senior special agent, and she has some stories that she's going to share with us, and I am so happy to have her on board because of that hand-on experience and wealth of knowledge. This is what we're talking about and what we need on the podcast. So other than Paul and I just kind of shooting the breeze and talking about things, it is so special when people and guests come on like Jenn and be able to give us some insight and some knowledge, and also inspire others to just kind of be an advocate or tell your story. Whatever your story may be, it could be whether you were a victim, whether you were a support system for someone, an advocate for someone. We're just trying to bring this all up. And I just am so thrilled about this week. Paula got me all excited last week, and I left her hanging. I didn't talk to her initially, said she had a special guest here coming on. And she was like, he didn't even ask me who it was. So without further ado, my co-host Paula Young and Jenn Budd. How y'all doing?
Good.
We're doing good. We're doing very good, I think.
Thank you, Charlie. And I want to thank everybody who's obviously listening to us every Wednesday night at 7:30. We have a wonderful following. Thank you for always being with us. And Charlie, I don't think we ever just kind of sit and chat. We have so many stories that we tell, so many guests. But today we have a very special guest. And I connected with Jenn via just an email that I sent to her. And she actually left me a message and said, you know what? I was writing the email, but I figured I should call you instead. So that's how we connected. And she's going to really talk about everything on her perspective of what she has seen, been through, and what is she's now doing in reference to her advocacy. Because I think it's important that people understand when we're being told certain things in the media, you can't always believe what you hear. You sometimes have to really talk to the people who are the boots on the ground, as Charlie and I say a lot, and we have that tonight. So I'm so appreciative of Jenn for coming on. I so appreciate you being here and talking about everything that you saw and what, and even maybe changes that need to be made. If you could just take your finger and snap a wand and say, this is what needs to happen, because people need to hear this. They need to hear the reality. They need to hear the truth. And, really no holds bar. And there's nobody here holding up a sign saying you can't say this or you can't say that. You can say whatever it is that you feel you need to. So Jenn, we're going to give you the stage for an hour. We, again, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll probably have questions coming as people start listening. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yes.
I appreciate it. Thank you to both of you. I am very honored to be here. I guess I should give you a background about who I am and how I got involved in the U.S. Border Patrol. I'm originally from Alabama. My family was pretty much kind of a middle of the line Democrats, I would say. We weren't conservative like most Southerners are now. And I have put myself through Auburn University. Go War Eagles, go Tigers.
Right.
And and graduated. Number one in my class, was on my way to law school, and I had gone home for a little bit in between that, deciding where I wanted to go. And it suddenly dawned on me after being away at college that my childhood was pretty rife with abuse and violence from my mother, who was a severe alcoholic and had mental illness. And I suddenly kind of panicked, just understanding what I had grown up with, the violence, and I felt like I had to get out of there. And somebody mentioned this thing called the Border Patrol was hiring, and I was like, "What the hell is the Border Patrol?" And so, I mean, being from Alabama, I didn't know anything about it, you know. So
Yep.
I went out there, and they offered me a job in San Diego. I knew back then that I was a gay woman. The thought of getting out of the South sounded pretty good back in the '90s. And I joined, and I do have to correct you, Charlie. I was in the service for 6 years, from '95 to '01, just shortly before 9/11, and I resigned because of the corruption and brutality that I witnessed. I had tried to whistleblow and come forward many times in my career. I was sexually assaulted in the academy by another agent, which is very common in the Border Patrol. It is so common that they have a way of forcing us, many of us females, to not be able to file complaints. And I had tried to file a complaint, but they told me I would lose my job. And so I ended up just having to suck it up and move on and prove how tough I was. But what I found out over the years is this is really common. In fact, the very first Latina Border Patrol agent, named Estina Lopez, she joined in 1975, and she was raped in the academy just like I was, and it was covered up just the same. In fact, the motto of the Border Patrol is honor first, but the men don't say it like that. They say on her first. That's how they say it.
Wow.
And yeah, I have a lot of research into that, but that's not what I really wanted to talk about today. But basically, I left in 2001 after trying to blow the whistle about my boss at the station in Campo being the one smuggling drugs. And they offered me a position to shut my mouth at Sector, to promote me if I would be quiet. And I said, I'm not that kind of woman. And they sent me out that night to the field, and I got shot at. And that boss showed up at 3 a.m. in the morning and asked me if I'd learned my lesson. So I left. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it anymore. And it took me quite a few years to understand the brutality and the things that I had done and engaged in. And it's not to say that I believe in open borders. I do not believe in open borders, and I'm not saying every Border Patrol agent is a horrible person, but I am saying that the system and the management of the Border Patrol is corrupt, and the system and the management of the Border Patrol is the one that covers up all these things. The men and women who join our Border Patrol, the majority of them are like me. They just want to protect their country. They're believing what their politicians are saying. And the fact of the matter is, both sides of our politicians, both sides of the aisle, they lie about the border, and they use the migrants to scapegoat their problems that they don't address.
Absolutely.
And I think, yeah, when Paula contacted me, and she's telling me about her son, and he's doing what most of us did as kids, taking a drag off a joint. Most of us have done that. And quite a few of us do it nowadays, including me as I get older, and I need that kind of pain relief for sure. And died for it. And it bugs me so much that I had to pick up the phone and call her, because I've written about this, of how Republicans and Democrats both claim that they're so worried about Americans dying from fentanyl, and yet they don't do anything to stop it. All they do is say the border needs to be closed. And I'm here to tell you that if you close the asylum system, if you do not allow immigrants to come and claim asylum, and you do not allow an immigration system to develop in a robust and healthy manner that provides security for the United States and provides safety for immigrants, then you will have more people crossing the border illegally. Now, do some people cross the border illegally with drugs? Sure, but not that many. The fact of the matter is, even when I was an agent in the 90s, very rarely did we get anything other than terrible marijuana coming from Mexico. All the drugs like cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, these synthetic opiates, and all this other stuff, those are a pretty penny. And they make a pretty good profit for the cartel and for the drug smugglers. Those things don't come on the backs of migrants. They don't come on the backs. Sometimes they'll come on the backs of drug smugglers a little bit, but not enough to make a difference. In fact, today, on I think it's called X now instead of Twitter. The chief of the Border Patrol was bragging about over the weekend his 20,000 agents apprehended 10 pounds of fentanyl. Now, 10 pounds of fentanyl is not a good thing. Any amount of fentanyl is not a good thing. So I'm glad that they got those 10 pounds. But when you think about 20,000 agents all across the United States, and you think about over 100 border checkpoints, all within 100 miles of any land or sea border, and they only get 10 pounds of fentanyl. I mean, number one part of the problem is the corruption within the CBP agents at the ports is really bad. And the corruption in the Border Patrol is really bad. In fact, Border Patrol agents today are arrested at a higher percentage rate than the migrants that they are arresting. Wow. They commit more crimes, more rape, more murder, more percentage-wise per population. The Border Patrol agents commit more crimes than the migrants that they are arresting. And so couldn't always say that, but you can say that nowadays. And it's because, you know, Border Patrol agents and CBP agents are arrested 5 times as often as any other police agency in the United States, federal, state, or local. They are corrupt beyond corrupt beyond corrupt. And they have secret cover-up teams that I ended up outing called critical incident teams. They were, once I outed them, is what they really were, of covering up crimes and drug dealing and killings and stuff like that. CBP did move them, but unfortunately they just rotated them into CBP from Border Patrol and then therefore legalized them. So they're still covering up things. But the main thing that I wanted to get across to Paula and to Charlie and to anybody else listening who's suffered losing loved ones to these deadly drugs is, where do you think all those drugs are coming from? You notice your politicians don't ever tell you how all those drugs are getting on the street. They just say they're coming through the southern border and it's all these asylum seekers. We need to shut down the border. That's a very big jump to these different ideas. Where the majority of your fentanyl is coming from, and I mean tons of fentanyl, and I'm not saying that as just a, you know, just verbiage. I'm saying literal tons of fentanyl, literal tons of heroin and cocaine. These kinds of drugs come in cargo shipping containers, whether they're coming in through the seaports like Los Angeles port. I think New York and New Jersey have pretty big ports over on y'all's side of the country. Florida probably has a big port. You know, they're all over the place, right? And then you have the trucks, the cargo containers coming in on the semis at the land ports of entry. The CBP also checks those as well. And then you also have them coming across rail from Mexico into the United States. Well, guess how much CBP checks of those? They're lucky if they check 5% a year.
I know the answer. I can't say it because she already told me. So, Charlie, you can answer this.
So, Charlie, if you're a drug dealer, being that you're next cop, which way do you think you would choose to move your drugs? Would you choose to put it on a backpack of a migrant and tell them go run it across the hills or swim it across the river? No. You're going to put it in those cargo shipping containers. And the other problem that the system that they have for checking shipping containers is that they allow big, well-known companies, and I'm just going to throw out a company name that we all know, and I'm not saying they're doing this. I'm just in general. Like, let's say Toyota. Toyota shipping products over to us. And because they're a well-known and reputable company, they have the ability to then pay money for these licensing fees and so forth, to then not be checked as often by CBP and have their distribution interrupted. And so they pay these fees, and I'm sure the CEOs of companies like that, and again, I'm not saying Toyota's doing this, I'm just using them as an example of a big company, but the CEOs aren't down there checking the shipping containers when they go out. Somebody else is doing that and making sure that whatever goods they want on it are getting on it. And so every now and then when they do check those, they do find lots of drugs in them because obviously the companies can't have such a tight control on it, or they choose not to. But when they do occasionally decide to open a shipping container, they find literal tons of drugs in there. That is how your fentanyl is getting here. But your politicians on both sides don't want to tell you that. Why? Because then they would have to come up with a solution, and they would have to admit that they have failed to protect Americans. And that is
Yes.
how fentanyl gets into the country to kill your children. That's how.
And fentanyl has been around, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, since 2001 here in America, correct?
I think so. Yeah, I didn't see any of it when I was an agent. And like I said, if we ever saw cocaine or something like that, it was usually at a checkpoint trying to come through, not coming through the southern border. So we would have no idea how it came through unless the person told us. So,
Right.
yeah.
Now, what do you think about what everybody is talking about, not just in reference to the migrants, and of course we know that they're being unfortunately used by many, but in reference to the cartels. I mean, you know, because we hear that they're being paid off, that they're paying people off at the border, that literally people that come over have to pay them, including Border Patrol. Do you think that that's an accurate statement, or it's kind of teetering on maybe not?
Well, the Border Patrol is not being 100% honest when they say that the cartel controls the border. The cartel does control the border on the south side. The Border Patrol controls the border on the north side. And the fact of the matter is that cartel pays off a lot of Border Patrol agents to look the other way. There are high-ranking Border Patrol agents that have been involved in this kind of stuff. And I mean, like I said, the boss of my station and stuff, very high-ranking officials have been part of this. So the other thing is that I was an agent in the mid-90s, and up until about after the George W. Bush administration, the majority of people crossing our southern border were Mexicans looking for work.
Yeah.
Occasionally we find Central Americans. Occasionally we would have Russians and all these other people from China and this and that. And it was always like you're in the mountains in the middle of the night and you catch the group and they turn around and they're all Chinese and you're like, oh, crap, because it's a lot of paperwork and it's a difficult language. So now you got to deal with, translation. I'm sure Charlie knows all about that. And so it just makes it a little harder for the processing for the agents. But nowadays, during the Obama years, that's when the government should have recognized that the demographics of who's coming to our southern border is drastically changing. We would have people coming to the border now who are looking for asylum. Now, whether or not they meet what our requirements are for asylum, that's not the Border Patrol's business. That's not even CBP's business. Their only point is they're the initial contact, and they're supposed to do the qualifications that they see, run the records checks, and if they meet that, then they can go forward into the United States, and they can wait until they're hearing before an immigration judge. I know that a lot of people think the Border Patrol should be able to decide who gets to come into the country and who doesn't, but that's not what the law is. And so if they want that changed, then they need to change the law. That's not the law. So, but the other thing is just that when everything, the demographics change to being people who needed asylum, they needed to change the system, because Border Patrol is a law enforcement agency. We're running around in between the ports of entry with big guns and this and that, looking for drug dealers, looking for human trafficking, like sex trafficking victims and this and that. They don't need to be burdened with asylum seekers just wanting to claim asylum. And unfortunately, what we've done at the same time, when your politicians tell you there's a legal avenue and they just need to take it, they just don't want to do it. That's not true. That is not true. The legal avenue, since like when I was an agent, let's say it was this wide, and this meaning people could fit through. Now it's like this wide. And so what we saw with Title 42, the pandemic law that Trump put into effect, is that if you close the asylum system, which is what Trump did, then all those people, it only takes like 2 months from me watching the figures to when it started to increase in the Trump administration. Title 42, if you enact another law like that, which is what Republicans are saying they want right now, the amount of people going across in between the ports of entry, which is where the guys in green, me, that's what I did, are looking for people who cross without inspection, will dramatically go up. So you have less of an opportunity to encounter those people and then do those records checks. They need to be going to a port of entry, whether they have to wait a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. They will wait. If they think that they have a legal avenue to do it the safe way, they will do that. And that's what we should want them to do, because then they are in our custody, in our control. We can do our records checks. We know where they're going. We can find out where they're going and their contacts and all this and set them up with a court date. That's how it's supposed to work. So, I mean, you know, there's a lot of stuff going back and forth. And what I always like to say is a closed border is as dangerous as an open border. So you have to have, so if you think like this is a port of entry, excuse my hands, that's what Border Patrol agents end up with, massive suicide attempt. That's why my hands are messed up, but I'm all good. I'm all good. Don't worry about it. But at any rate, so let's say you have this port of entry over here, and then you have in between the ports, you have all these people coming every year like they always do, because we're the United States of America. Everybody wants to come in here and have that opportunity. Can you blame them? No. So we have to regulate that. So we have to be able to get them in this system. But what they're trying to do is just close the system down, and that just is going to cause everybody to come forward, and Border Patrol cannot apprehend everybody. They don't have the time to be able to do what they need to do. And then truthfully, in the long run, it is a threat to national security, because it prevents Border Patrol from taking the time and paying attention to the things that they should be paying attention to. But the question is, why would the Border Patrol Union then support something like that, an asylum ban? And the reason is because the Border Patrol Union is so in love with Trump, and they love his brutal policies, that they want him to come back. So they will make their agents work and go out and have to collect tons and tons of bodies of people who cross in the dangerous areas, like where I used to work. And that in turn creates the suicide attempts and the problems in the Border Patrol. So when you do these things, you aren't just hurting migrants. You aren't just hurting the borderlands communities of people who live down here with all the militarization. You are also affecting the agents. And this is why we have such bad corruption and why we have such bad suicide rate. And so it's very complicated, and there are all these interests that are involved. And quite frankly, I mean, a lot of people say, well, isn't Joe Biden better on immigration? I guess he's a little bit better, but I mean, quite frankly, I was hired under Clinton. Obama was the deporter in chief. And the way I see it is the difference between Republicans and Democrats on immigration issues, and that would include fentanyl, because that's a border issue, a border security issue, and drugs are, is that Republicans like to brag about their brutality and one up each other on how mean they can be. And the Democrats are like, no, we're not really that mean, but behind the scenes, yeah, they're still trying, and they're, you know, they don't want to admit it. And quite frankly, after my suicide attempt, I started to recognize how what I did as an agent and what I experienced as an agent, and watching all of my really good friends who were good men and women, not all of them, obviously, but, you know, go down the road of alcoholism, go down the road of being addicted to drugs, go down the road of stealing marijuana out of the evidence locker, going down, you know, corruption and, you know, stuff that they shouldn't be doing and all that kind of stuff. And that is really what's going on the border. It is a mess. It is a total mess. And the sad thing is the migrants get caught up in it, and the people that work on the border that are trying to protect our country get caught up in it. And it's a lot of politics, and your children end up getting caught in it because they got the one joint with some fentanyl in it. So.
Right.
Yeah, and what's going on is that when staff along the Border Patrol going through all kinds of stuff, all kinds of different personal things, professional things, what happens is they have a staffing problem, and they can't staff the borders properly because either they're getting burnt out, they're resigning, um, and just not fit for duty. And so now what it happens is it goes on. Now they need help. So the only place they can get help is other federal agencies. So now
Yeah.
you end up burning out other agencies to help another one that's hurting and it's staggering. Uh, and it's sad because now we have a overflow into other agencies in the federal government that that are getting tarnished or tainted because they're trying to help out as best they can with another agency. And what can you do? You can't do anything other than go where they tell you to go or go home. And
Yeah.
do you want to go home? No, you don't want to go home because chances are you have a mortgage, you have family, you have so many things that you have to take care of. And you just say, look, I got to do this. It'll only be for a little while. And then so that little while is, oh, wait a minute. Charlie's so willing to go down to the border. Let's send him down there again, you know? And then all of a sudden now it becomes taxing and now affects your family. So, but Jen, those stories are amazing. Let me ask you something.
Yes.
Are you writing a book?
Oh, I wrote the book. It's behind me.
Oh my God! See that?
Against the wall. That's
That's
a metaphor. It's about like walls in your mind that you put up. So it's not just against the wall. And I am against the wall because I knew the Border Patrol before the first Clinton wall got to. Thanks for that. Before the first Clinton wall got to my station up in the mountains in East San Diego, and I knew the Border Patrol after the wall got there. And these walls and deterrence policies do not prevent anybody from crossing. They don't prevent any drugs from crossing. The most they do is prevent cars from driving straight across, but even then they just cut the fence and then off they go. So they really don't do much. They require constant, continuous maintenance, and they cost tons of money. The Trump wall has already fallen over in Salsa Bay, Arizona, because it's been undermined by the water and stuff. So they quickly got in there. They had to cut out their own wall and then get into Mexico with a little trench digger and pull out all the rocks and pull it back up. And it was funny. And nobody even reports on this. But the Trump wall's already fallen down in some places. And it just it doesn't do anything. The answer is to have a robust and humane asylum system where we're inspecting people and those people can go through there, and then the Border Patrol can deal with whatever is going on in between. So, it just, these deterrence policies, all they do is they kill migrants, and frankly, they kill agents, to be honest with you. It has killed quite a few agents.
Wow.
Jen, why don't you talk about how you said to me, because of course I found this statistic to be so shocking, is how the Border Patrol, I mean, number one in suicide is the Border Patrol. And to people listening, they might not understand that. They might be like, well, what do you mean? Why would that be the case? Can you tell us some stories so people can understand the concept? Because we're touching on the mental health. We're touching on, the boots on the ground, the environment that folks are in, including yourself. But there's so much more that goes into this.
Yeah, and my stories are similar to a lot of agent stories today. It's not, I know a lot of people are like, well, you were an agent a long time ago. But agents weekly who are like, I can't do it anymore. I speak to supervisors with 2 years in who are like, I don't know what's going on. And it's
they're
not
actually,
to say,
and they're getting
ahead.
promoted quicker. They're getting promoted so much quicker because of the turnover. And it's like, I got to promote you. Yeah, you get 2 years on, I'm promoting you. And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're right. And that is a lot of it. Like, one of the things about deterrence policies that the Border Patrol understood was, so deterrence policies started in October of 1994. And that essentially meant they started building the wall, started militarizing in San Diego, California, right on the beach, and then just started building east. And that's the way it went. We as agents could tell that the wall was killing people. And we at the time in Campo, even the old agents who had seen a lot more death and destruction than I had, actually got up and said, "This is killing migrants, and that's not right." And I have older agents, from before 9/11 that are like, "Dude, this isn't right. We shouldn't be doing this." And that was before 9/11. After 9/11, the Border Patrol started allowing agents to get education from anti-immigrant hate groups that spread lies that asylum seekers and most migrants were criminals. And then you hear like the words that Trump used when he was running for office. They're sending us their murderers, their rapists, and this and that. That's all from those anti-immigrant hate groups. And so you start to hear the Border Patrol. I started to hear the Border Patrol agents using terms like invaders. And I was like, what? Yeah. And they said, oh, these asylum seekers are invaders. And so the Border Patrols become even more militarized than when I was an agent, while at the same time losing any kind of humanity or sympathy they might have had for the migrants, because most agents today sit in their trucks and wait for a camera or a sensor to tell them where the migrants are to go and find them. Most agents, I've learned, don't know how to sign cut, which is the tracking of people by their footprints through the wilderness. And I was an expert at that. Most Campo agents back in the day were experts with that before 9/11. And we didn't have special search and rescue teams called War Star that the Border Patrol developed in the late 90s. We didn't have it in Campo. And so when somebody was lost or somebody called and said, my granddaughter crossed and I think she's in this area, can you help find her, and blah, 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 we would have to go find the most likely tracks and follow them for days through the snow and through the heat until we found them. And we found a lot of dead bodies. And it started to destroy us and we started to fall apart. So that's why the Border Patrol created War Star, was so that when there are search and rescue needs, only a handful of agents who want to volunteer for those positions go do that. Your regular everyday borderline agents weren't experienced. They don't experience the level of bodies that we did because they leave most of them out there now. They don't care about them. And our southwest border is like, it's a mass graveyard, especially in Arizona and a lot in California's desert in the El Centro area. That's the very east part of California's border with Arizona. And then God only knows how many migrants, probably a small village, have died and drowned in that Rio Grande River going through Texas and New Mexico. You'll never know because most of the bodies end up in Mexico. And I think for a lot of us, we get in, we think honor first, you're in the academy, it's all this. And slowly as you get to your stations and stuff, or if you encounter things like I did in the academy, then you start to kind of wonder about it and this and that, but you can't believe that the Border Patrol is really all this bad. So you give it a shot and you keep going and you keep working and you've worked this hard to get through all this stuff. And you just see the guys around you. This guy's smuggling drugs and nobody's doing anything about it. That guy, he's dating the women that he's arresting every night. He's meeting them on the south side. And this guy, God only knows what he's doing and this and that. And you start to realize that honor first is a lie. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of agents that have been arrested and nothing ever happens to them half the time. The Tucson Border Patrol sector, until the last 2 years, the Tucson Border Patrol sector chaplain, they have a Border Patrol chaplain in every sector, was a guy who ended up being arrested. He only had like a few years left. He was about to retire. He probably would be retired now and getting his pension and stuff, before they realized that he was a child predator and had been raping his daughters for years. And then they found out, the press somehow found out what the Border Patrol didn't tell them, that when he was 14 years old, he raped a child and the Border Patrol still hired him because their hiring standards are so bad. I mean, I've been standing on the Interstate 8 checkpoint as an agent, as a senior patrol agent, doing my duty, checking people's citizenship, waving them through, and I'm standing next to a guy, and they come and arrest him because he's a trainee and he just got out of the academy. He's standing next to me with a gun on his hip, wearing the same badge I am, the same uniform I am. Oh, but he committed a crime before he joined the Border Patrol, and they just now figured it out. And he's already been trained. He's already been told the secrets of the Border Patrol, the national security secrets, although they don't get that much when they're new, I'll be honest with you. But then, you know, and you just start to realize, like, this whole thing is BS. It's BS. And especially the thing about, to be honest with you, like, you know, the migrants, and they keep saying, oh, we caught this criminal, we caught this guy, he's a former child predator. That's great. That's great. But what about the child predators that you're protecting that wear your badge? What about, you know, they have some guy on trial who's a Border Patrol agent. He was a Border Patrol agent for 20 years in Tucson. And he started raping when he graduated the academy and moved to Tucson, and he raped the entire time he was there. And the Border Patrol will not release his records because, you know, there's probably lots of migrant complaints. And the Border Patrol, they're just not going to release his records. You know, they've got at least 2 or 3 agents in Tucson on trial for rape right now. They have a Border Patrol serial killer that was just convicted. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And every time the Border Patrol says, well, that's not indicative of the fine men and women who represent the United States Border Patrol. But it is indicative of the fact that you have bad hiring standards. It is indicative of the fact that when you do have bad agents, you cover up for it. And it's the management of the Border Patrol is very corrupt. It's not the junior agents that you meet out on the field that are just been in a few years and are just trying to understand the system and know what goes on. It takes a good 3 or 4 years before you really understand the entire system and that it is corrupt, and that you either have to choose to look the other way or you have to choose to leave, one or the other.
So what is
that's why they have such a bad attrition rate.
Yeah. So Jenn, what is your thought from the friends that you still talk to that are still there, obviously? What are they saying in reference to the whole crisis with fentanyl? Are they saying, yeah, we saw this coming? Because that's something that we constantly hear a lot. Charlie and I is, you know, like the DEA will say, oh, we saw this coming, but we just can't arrest our way out of this. And this is where we are. What are you hearing from your folks? Because I think that would be interesting to know, especially they're the boots on the ground like you were, and they see it firsthand.
Yeah, I've had other agents say she's right. She knows exactly what she's talking about. It is coming through these cargo shipping containers, and you know, there's this big argument between the Border Patrol on Twitter about who catches more fentanyl, Border Patrol or CBP. There's this huge argument, and they get all upset and furious about it. And it's like, none of y'all are catching that much fentanyl. It's on the streets everywhere. And then you sit there and claim, well, we have to be able to do this to catch more fentanyl. And the more we let you do, the less fentanyl you're catching. You're not really catching it. And then you see in like, I've seen in San Francisco. So these are interesting thing I saw in San Francisco. And this occurred because of our border policies. So you know how some migrants are, let's say you're a female migrant, good looking young female migrant. And the smuggler says, you know what? I know you can't afford the money to cross, so you can work it off in my sister's restaurant in San Francisco. Or they'll say to a young man, you can work it off in my cousin's construction company in San Francisco. And then they get to San Francisco, and then they're told, really, there's no construction company. There's no restaurant for you to work in. What we're going to do is we're going to make you sell fentanyl on the streets. And so you have these young migrants getting caught up to where they're either going to be killed or they'll just be turned over to ICE immigration, La Migra as they call us, and they're forced to sell fentanyl. Most of them have, most of them have no idea on the streets. A lot of them are unaccompanied children that end up being filtered and enforced in, and yet our system doesn't recognize them as victims because they're selling fentanyl versus the victims who are forced to sell their bodies. So it is the same kind of concept, but the courts and the police still don't recognize those being forced to sell drugs as victims. They still believe they have a choice, whereas somehow sex victims don't. So at any rate, there's a bias there. But it just, one of our policies has created this situation. One of the reasons why we have so many people crossing right now is because we went to their countries first. We went to Central America and allowed our companies to go there, like Nestle and all these other countries, to then suck out all the water, suck out all the resources. And the US government has supported dictators and authoritarians in those countries that have just abused and used all the resources and allowed crime to organized crime to exist and to flourish. And so a lot of the reason why they come here is because we were there first. And so we've made their lands uninhabitable. And then on top of it, you look at when I was an agent, it cost about, for a Mexican to cross the southern border with a guide in my area in the mountains would be about $700 in the 90s. Today, it's probably about $1,200 to $1,500 for a Mexican. In my day, for a Central American, it's probably about $1,800, $2,000. Now it's $10,000. That's what they were charging Chinese back in the day, 20 years ago when I was an agent. Now it's like probably $40,000, $50,000. It's a lot more. So it depends.
Jen, who are they paying that money to? I'm sorry.
So they pay that money to a cartel member. So this is the other fact that I mentioned is when I was an agent, cartel did not do smuggling, human smuggling. They only did drug smuggling. So the migrants found their way to the southern border, however it was they found their way. And they usually, like out where we were, it was pretty much nobody living on the south side except maybe a little community here and there. And that little community, they would be like, yeah, you can stay in my house and I'll feed you and you can cross at night if you give me like $20 or something like that. That's kind of how it was. And you could hire guides. You could hire guides that lived in the local area that knew the mountain trails and kind of knew where we had our sensors until we moved them and stuff. So it was this just cat and mouse game back and forth. And it wasn't until we militarized the border and made it more difficult to cross because we were apprehending more people that then the money went up and then the cartel went, hey, now it's profitable to smuggle humans across the border. So let's get involved. So that's how the cartel became involved in smuggling after 9/11, pretty much. They got involved. So it just, there's no way they could not look at that and walk away from it. It's just too big of a money boom for them, otherwise. I mean, the thing is we're just going to keep having more and more migrants. Every year we have migrants. One of the reasons why we have so many right now is just because Title 42 closed the asylum system down for 4 years, like I said. So if we have a robust and secure and humane asylum system that checks everybody, that lets people work, lets people be productive, we know who they are, where they are, get them in the system so we can get them on track where they need for their worker permits and all this other stuff. And we don't give enough worker permits. That's part of the problem. All be better off. Countries like Russia and other countries use migration to disrupt countries. We saw it in Syria. That's what Putin did in Syria. And that's how they disrupted the EU. That's how they disrupted Hungary. That's how Viktor Orban of Hungary won election. And that's, it's not to say that there aren't countries trying to push migrants to us. There are. Of course there are. But the migrants themselves, the vast majority of them, they're not, they think that they should get asylum. And I do think the asylum laws should be widened and updated because they're very old and they're not applicable to today's climate crisis and things like that. But, if countries are going to try and destabilize us with lots of migrants, if that is what somebody's trying to do, we have to remember that the migrants themselves are legitimate, the majority of them. And that's the Border Patrol and CBP's job, is to find them. It's not to sit there and complain, well, we can't do our job because there's too many people. They're the biggest bunch of crybabies I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen agents so whiny as the Border Patrol agents today. They're like, we can't possibly handle 100 people. It's just ridiculous. It's funny today. They'll arrest a group of migrants. They'll arrest like 20 migrants, and they'll use 10 agents to do it. I'm like, what? Because Charlie, the difference between my job and probably what you did is the majority of people I'm arresting are not criminals. Less than 1%. Less than 1%. In my 6 years there, I probably, if I was lucky, I probably put 10 bad people, 20 bad people in jail. I mean, the rest of it is just constant migrant. And if you go into the Border Patrol, you're not going into the Border Patrol to stand at a port of entry and check people's documents. You go into the Border Patrol because you want to hike, you want to ride horses, you want to be out in the middle of nowhere, and you want to get drug smugglers and things like that. They don't want to be processors. They need to stop acting like Border Patrol is processors. What they're doing is they're using a law enforcement tool for what is a humanitarian issue. That's the problem. And you cannot solve this with that. And they need to take all that money that they keep spending on Border Patrol and stuff and start developing a humane and robust asylum system where families can wait in a healthy environment and wait to be inspected and wait to have their records checks and then go through, and we know where they are. And we also need to stop collecting migrants, some of these governors collecting migrants and sending them to other cities like New York City and stuff. Because normally these migrants, they would come across and then they just go out to where they go. But what these governors are doing is they're compacting them and then they ship them all to one city to overwhelm them. When normally all those people aren't going to that one city. So they're creating the crises that they want because they want the visual right now, specifically of Black and brown bodies coming across that fence. They want the photos of that to then show, oh, we need Donald Trump back in. That's the whole goal right now.
Yeah, and it's when you say white and brown bodies, right? This is a big country, and the border is all around the country, in different shades of people. And I mean, Paula and I in our city is full of immigrants, right?
Yeah.
And and they're all shades, but you see that the hype, the pictures, it's what you just said. It's Black and brown skin tone people, and it's I don't want to lead that way, but it is what it is. It's a fact. We can't say it's not a fact. It's a fact. The perception is what do you say is reality, right? The perception is what is shown out there, and it's just blasted left and right, all different media outlets, news articles. As soon as I click on the internet browser on my Explorer, boom, it's there, and I'm saying, this isn't something I look at, but it's there.
But we see it even with the fentanyl crisis. We see, and Jenn, I'm sure even with you in California, but Charlie and I here in Massachusetts, we see it. I mean, we have, Martha's Vineyards, the ritzy Ritz.
Yeah.
I mean, President Obama has a house there. And one of the things is that, with my advocacy, and Charlie knows this, I've been trying to get into the vineyards to talk to the kids, and I'm told they don't have a problem. But yet, if you do research, you're going to see at how much they've caught drugs into the vineyards because of it being on the water. So it's like, how are you going to, but because you're ritzy Ritz, then, oh my God, you don't have a problem. But then come across the water over here to our area, to New Bedford, Fall River, Taunton, where we are, closer to Boston. And now they don't have a problem with you talking to someone, depending on the area of the neighborhood you want to go into. And that's what I see. as a huge crisis. And I don't know if you see this, Jen, but I see it where you still have people who see the facts. They see the numbers. They see the faces. You know, I mean, fentanyl right now is the number one killer in 12 to 17-year-olds. They see this coming from the CDC and the National Health Institute and the Department of Justice. And still they will sit there and say to you, well, we're talking about, you know, we're doing prevention. No, you're not. No, you're not.
No. And this is indicative of where our entire country is at the moment. What
So
you're
true.
seeing with,
Exactly.
what you're seeing with it's our institutions are failing us. You know, we have investigations all the time into, okay, this is failing. We need to investigate this. And they come up with some ridiculous excuse. Well, we just weren't sure, or we just didn't know. You know, I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of like the January 6th thing. It's like 9/11. It's like all these investigations they just go nowhere. They're sham investigations. And what we've failed to realize, and I think what the Biden administration has failed to realize, and a lot of Americans have failed to realize, is our country is deteriorating.
Yeah.
Our institutions are deteriorating. And what we are seeing is our judiciary or judicial system is so corrupt that, like, the Border Patrol can run and a secret and illegal cover-up team that testifies before federal judges, and the judges don't even know that it's illegal. I mean, it's just insane. And I think when we expect, let me put it this way, I think it's kind of odd that we should expect these leaders who have allowed over 1.5 million Americans to just die from COVID without so much as a "I'm sorry" or "let's talk about it" or anything, or these leaders who let 9/11 we found out happen. They knew about it ahead of time, but they didn't have the exact date, although they knew they were going to fly planes into the towers. But nothing to see here. Let's move on. See, we have no end. These big national events that we should be able to unify over. And the reason why is because our government is dropping the ball. Our politicians on both sides, the entire political structure, with the amount of money that they have in it and the pay to play and everything is going on. I have to say, in one aspect, Trump is right about that. He knows it's like that because he loves that kind of stuff. He's all about that. And he's not wrong in that. That is exactly, the Democrats get just as rich being in Congress for 20, 30 years, and they shouldn't be getting rich like that. They shouldn't be able to do that. And this is what they have done to our system. This is why Congress can't, you know, when we need to go declare a war, they can't declare a war. They're always like, you know, or when we need to do this, they can't do this. And they have all these excuses. And the fact is our politicians are narcissists. They are egocentric, and they do not care about the public. They do not care about your children dying of fentanyl. They do not care about your grandparents dying of COVID. They don't care about tens of thousands of migrants that we have pushed, including children. I know everybody thinks that the migrants that die out in the deserts and the rivers and the mountains are like these. You think that they're rough-toed little, you know, like Latino-looking guys, drug smuggling and this and that. No, they're babies. They're women with children. They're women who are pregnant, you know. And we don't want to recognize that. And I think that this is a national disgrace that we think that this is an okay for an asylum system or an immigration system. This obstacle of death that we've created for them. That says a lot about our lack of humanity. The way that the police constantly kill Black men and women for not having a turn signal on. All these are signs that our society and our culture and our institutions are falling apart. And that's what you're going to see. So when you go and you say, I want you to do something about fentanyl, I know it's coming across in the cargo containers, let's do something about it. They're going to be like, well, you know, the people that pay me to be up here, they like their goods coming across. Because you think about it, what can come across the border with the least amount of inspection? Goods. Goods. Because we have to keep the economy going. They care more about the almighty dollar and capitalism than they do about your children. So when you say, why aren't these politicians caring about my children? Well, what was their response to COVID? What was their response to all these other things? What is their response to children freezing to death? I mean, for God's sake, an entire family with young children from India froze to death on the northern border, and everybody went, well, they shouldn't have crossed. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know?
Crazy.
It's just ridiculous. And what the politicians, I think, have bargained on, and this is why, Republicans are so pro law enforcement, and quite frankly, the Democrats are too. And that's why we can't get any accountability, Charlie. I'm sure you probably know about this, is we can't get any accountability for the bad apples that are there. Yeah. And so it's difficult. With the Border Patrol, a lot of, like, over 50% of the Border Patrol is Hispanic, Latino, but they're hiring right from the border. And those kids don't have a lot of educational opportunities. I was unusual. And that's how I was able to see past that and get out. But they start at $50,000. In 2 or 3 years, they'll be making over $100,000 with their overtime and night pay and all that other stuff. I mean, where else can you go and make that kind of money in your first 2 or 3 years? You can't.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get trapped. They get very trapped in there. So,
and there's a lot of ways of getting the right people behind the lines or over the lines, and which leads to, corruption and so on and so forth. And that's everywhere, there's it's everywhere. I know a story of an incident in the Border Patrol where one of the agents was down there working, and he just partnered up with someone, and the person next to him had the same thing, similar to the story that you just talked about. He had a gun, he had a badge, he had everything similar to the person next to him. Well, along with that, he had many, many tattoos with MS-13 and so on and so forth. And he's like, hey, don't worry about it. That's my past, But how don't you not worry about it, How do you not worry about, if the other one that's in the lead of, trying to track someone down and you happen to get hit in the back or something like that, or set up, blindsided. So, it's a tough world. And, you talked about yourself being a whistleblower. Well, that's tough. And when you get blackballed and nobody wants to talk to you, nobody wants to associate with you, give you any answers, if you're looking for some answers, to kind of collaborate or prove your story, nobody's giving it to you, But I want to give you 5 stars for this interview. This is amazing, amazing, amazing stuff. I know I'm going to definitely listen to this again tomorrow. And I really, really appreciate it. The book behind you is definitely going to be on my shelf within the next 7 days.
Good.
And I'm going to continue to support you and send your website on my pages. And
I appreciate
and
that.
endorse that. Yeah. So, any last things you want to say, Paula, to Jenn? And
I know. I want to thank her for being on, and thank you for kind of enlightening us of what's happening, because again, media is really dictated by what's the story of the 5 minutes that are going to come out. What's the hot story, and then let's move from there. And this, and I've encountered some folks in the advocacy that we're now doing, and one of them is a former reporter for the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, and he tells me all the time, he said, Paula, if you think, it's not that the news isn't listening or they don't see it, it's that you're not the story of the day. This isn't the story of the 5 minutes that we have to put on air. It's you got your 2 minutes and then we keep it moving. And it's disgusting and it's sickening because we continue to see what's happening. We continue to see the crisis. And then, of course, we have to battle, unfortunately, and I know I'm probably going to get slack for this, but the artist Jelly Roll, who was just in Washington, D.C. and gave, his testimony in front of the Judicial Committee. Well, I will never say we don't appreciate someone talking about this. I will never say that. But what I will say is that when you're talking, especially in a platform like that, please give facts. And unfortunately, the information he gave was not facts. He equated it to an addict problem. He equated it to 194 a day. Those are incorrect facts. Those are incorrect statements. And here you have congressmen and senators sitting in front of you with the op-ed right in front of their face that their aide gave to them with the correct information. So what do you think the takeaway is going to be from that? It's going to be here's this person who supposedly knows it all, but yet he didn't even get the facts straight. So then it makes it harder for people like myself who are doing this, because now I'm going to have the kids that listen to him and, well, you're saying this, but we just heard him say this. And again, I'm not taking away that he talked about it. We appreciate anybody that brings this to the forefront, just as you, Jen, the advocacy work that you're now doing. But again, speak facts. See what's actually happening. Don't fabricate things, because in the end, it's going to be tougher for all of us of what we're doing. Because Charlie knows, because Charlie can tell you a quick story where he was with someone. Charlie, what was your story about? Someone said to you, "Oh no, fentanyl can't be in marijuana," and you almost wanted to throat punch them.
That marijuana can't be laced with fentanyl, and so it's amazing that those stories are going out there, because it's coming from people that are conversationalists. They're having conversations everywhere, all over the place. So I'm pretty sure that so openly discussing that and saying that to me, that they were also openly discussing it with many, many other people. And what happens is that's when a falsehood grows and grows and grows like a tree or a forest. It all depends how fast it's going, and so it's I'm 1 second here. I got a comment.
I just answered.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, Shantae, thank you for coming on. It's Facebook user. It just, there's so many people. I'm so happy that Jen, you got this attention, and this your conversation is being heard. It's definitely in front of me, from YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. And I will add this.
We got to
this
have
show
Jen
to
on again.
Spotify. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
You know
anytime.
what, Jen, we got to have you on with Ed Bish.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So Ed Bish is a dad who lost his son to a Percocet. And Ed Bish for 20 years has been fighting Big Pharma and the Sackler family to where we are today with, the opioid settlement money coming in. I mean, he is like, and he calls out the folks that need to be called out. He is actually,
that's me.
He's getting the Supreme Court to actually really take a step back and look at how the Sacklers faced no repercussion for what they did. So he is someone, I mean, Charlie, I think we need to make this happen between Ed and Jen. OMG.
Yeah. Well, I definitely, Jen, every Wednesday, we're here at 7:30 Eastern time. Feel free to, come on board, interrupt the podcast, and just say, invite me to the stage, and and I'll invite you. I'll send you the link, and then bam, you're on. But make sure your book's in the background like it is now.
Yes.
Yeah. When you guys are going out and you're talking to politicians and they start talking about fentanyl and the border, when are you going to start checking the storage containers, the goods containers? When are you going to do that? Because right now you're not checking 95% of it. And that's where it's coming from.
Mhm.
So let's get with it.
I
Yeah.
can't even get them. I can't even get the politicians here in Massachusetts, the senior politicians, Senator Warren and Ed Markey, to even sit down and talk to me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's always their aides. But yet,
It's funny though, because like in the Trump administration, and I don't know if it was like this for you, but in the Trump administration, like I was on TV all the time. People like MSNBC, CNN, all these people were like, let's talk about how awful the Border Patrol is under Trump and da 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 da. And then Biden gets in there and they're all like, oh.
Yeah.
Wait, what? It's
Jen,
the
you must
same
know.
Border Patrol. It's not
Yes.
going to change that
It's,
much.
Jen,
No.
you must know people because obviously the news talks to me, but it's more of the advocacy. But
Oh,
like
okay.
someone,
Yeah.
someone said to me, "Do you want to get on Fox News? Do you want?" I don't care who gives me the platform. I will
Well,
go
that's a
on.
good point.
Yeah, I will go on, but I'm going to keep it factual. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to take it to left field because that's not what this is about.
Mhm.
So I think, like yourself, anyone who gives you the platform, that's what you need to tell your story and to do the advocacy work that you're doing. And I think that's where we are. And, you know, Ed Bish said it himself when he was on 20 years advocacy to go after the Sackler family. He said, if you're waiting on government, you're wrong mistake.
Mhm.
They will do nothing.
I mean, that's how all this started. I think you and I, Paula, were talking about that. And let me know if we need to go. Is that you were talking about that we were talking about that this fentanyl thing? It all started because so many people, they told us opiates were okay. You know, I was on them after my suicide attempt, and I had a heck of a time getting off of them.
Yeah.
And that's when I ended up having to go to weed. You know, and it's like, but I've talked to so many people that end up, thanks, Michael. There's so many people that end up addicted to opiates, and then they end up, you know, divorced or this or that. They get arrested for whatever, and then they can't afford anything, and they get on fentanyl, and that's how they get on fentanyl. And then a lot of these people who are addicted to fentanyl that live on the border area end up being drivers for smuggling loads and stuff. And it's like, so we're just creating this system that just keeps going and going and going. And everyone's like, well, we're doing the best we can. We're going to go attack the migrants who are way over here and have nothing to do with this circle, but we're going to blame it on them over here. And it's just not true. Yeah, there's a lot of people crossing, and we need to have better systems. In some areas are overwhelmed, but that's not where your fentanyl and stuff, that's not what killed your kids. It's these cargo containers. It's these cargo containers.
And it's coming, you know, and they've created spray. You know, the cartel is a $3 trillion organization. They have accountants, they have CEOs, they have freaking COOs, they have HR people. I mean, they have lawyers.
They have American guns.
There you go.
Yes.
That we train them.
Big American guns.
That we train them on. Yes. Yeah. So when people say, you know, and this is why sometimes I say, when we're going or trying to go after politicians, Jen, it's like you said, Ed Bish has said, and many folks have said, they might listen for the 5 minutes. They're going to open the door because, oh, yes, let's talk to this parent because they lost a child. Let's open that door. But then they move on. And nothing is enough.
They don't care. They don't care. And I mean, if we didn't learn that from COVID, you know, they don't care.
So true.
They don't care about us. And they haven't done anything to fix any of the issues with COVID. I heard the other day, right now, 2,000 people a week in America are dying from COVID. They're not even reporting it.
Yeah.
Well, there's 300 a day of fentanyl. So not in 1 month, it's over 9,000.
They don't even report that. So it's like, they don't really care. And the migrants are just so easy to blame everything on. And it's just not true. It's not true. It's not to say that every migrant is a good person. I'm not saying that. But this is just ridiculous what we're doing. So I'm so glad to have met you both. And thank you so much for inviting me on.
Thank you, Jen. We got to get you here to Boston.
Yeah.
We do. I'll have to come over there, and we could do a book thing and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, you know, Charlie's a writer. Charlie also writes books.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
I enjoy it. I have 1 or 2 coming out soon. So, but I have quite a bit on Amazon. So.
Oh, okay. I'll look for you.
All right, thank you. And I could
My book's going to be on how to throat punch people and
yeah.
not get on CNN.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it in Charlie and me. We're not too far from that
Yeah.
that dark humor. Yeah, it's still
Well,
there.
I
Yeah.
thank you
love it.
so much, Jen. Thank you. This was awesome. Thank you for coming
Thank
on.
you all. Thank you for
so
your
very much.
wonderful guests and everything. Just wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. I
All
appreciate
right.
you.
Bless you all.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bless
night.
you also.
Bye bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Yeah, that was Jen Budd and Michael. Thank you for the conversation.
Hey, I deserve a coffee after all this, okay? I mean,
Yeah.
like really, like I've had some good guests, Charlie. Come
Yeah,
on.
you did. Yeah. I'm definitely not saying anything because other than thank you. It's good stuff, you know. She's I'm definitely gonna get that book. I can't wait to get it. Only because I was already thrilled and very much listening to everything that she said. So I can only imagine how wonderful that book's gonna be.
Oh
So
yeah, and you see, and as we saw, it was someone, Jen is someone who spoke facts. She's not
yeah,
making things up. She's not saying something she doesn't know. She did that for almost 10 years of her life, and she had to come out of it because of the fact of what she went through and what she saw and what still continues. So, I think that the other thing is that having people like this on the show to say this is what's happening. I think did I spell it? No, okay. They they understand the concept because they were, as I say many times, boots on the ground.
yeah,
And we need to understand, like she said, and she had already had this discussion with me. As you know, I told you I had an hour and a half discussion with her prior to coming on with us. She had already shared all that information with me. So I was not shocked, is the statement I will make.
yeah. It's amazing. The let's see. I just can't. I'm still thinking about some of the things she said, and it's almost like you know, we, we live the same thing. There's another situation where academy rapes in another agency is very common too. So, but
And
when
how
she,
disgusting is that? How
yeah,
sickening is that?
yeah,
And the thing is all these people, it's not fictitious people. They're
no,
showing it. She's also on TikTok for anybody who wants to follow her, Jen, and she goes and breaks things down with charts and everything, and that's what you want. Is you want that backup. You want to be able to go and see someone and see what they're doing and know that they're not just saying this from left field.
yeah, yeah. It's uh actually there's a link against the wall. My journey. That's go into the comment section, check out the link, copy it, and put it in your browser and order that book.
Yes. And anybody in New Bedford area this Sunday, Andrea McCoy Rec Center, we are going to have our first basketball event with the famous Hall of Famer Marcus Heltman, who is part of
Mhm.
Achieve Greatness. So please come on down. There is a link. Achieve Greatness has it on. We have it on our Facebook page. Charlie, I think you've posted it already for the kids to sign up. It is free to the kids. There's also going to be, we're going to get some food, and they're going to have a T-shirt to bring home so that they can keep. And this is the first of many events that we are hoping to continue to do for the kids in our community, where they are not paying anything, but they're going to be in a safe space. They're going to come and, have a wonderful, wonderful coach, Marcus Heltman, and his brother Isaiah, they're very well known in the community, teaching the fundamentals of basketball, having basketball games, and then also talking about the dangers of fentanyl and xylazine in our streets and what they need to look for, and what the parents need to look for. one thing that I say all the time, and Charlie, you know this, is we're doing this because we don't want you to be us.
Yeah, trying to save lives. And this is great. Wednesdays are very special to me only because of this podcast and you and the messages that are being delivered. Wednesday is a very, very important day for me. So
thank you.
I can't wait for next Wednesday and do our thing. Let's see what else I have. Sunday, I may.
Yeah. Are you coming to the basketball event?
I may be there for about an hour or two. So just got to make sure I check with the plan maker in the house,
Oh no, absolutely. Listen, when we first said that we were going to do this, one of the things is, because I'm the executive director of Achieve Greatness, besides being the CEO, as everyone knows, the president. And Marcus had said to me, do you want to do 3-on-3 and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't even know what that is. Like, are you just going to have 3 kids on the court? I thought basketball is a lot more children. I don't know. So Phil has said that I no longer can talk and do basketball. It has to be. He isn't.
He's fired.
He's doing basketball with Marcus. And Mike Daniels, as you know, because I have been fired from that position. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Ousted. But I get it. So all right, I'll see you Sunday. You need to talk to me before then, just text me, and we'll go from there.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate all of you. Hopefully we'll see you all next Wednesday. Another definitely wonderful guest I plan on having. Charlie will post something on Tuesday. So please continue to support this, continue to support Charlie, continue to support what we're doing here. And anyone that wants to come on, we would love to have you because I think, this is not a I problem. This is a community problem. And we need to address it and really be here for all of us to be able to take care of the kids and make sure that they have something to go to. Exactly.
So, all right, everyone, I am going to end this podcast with my favorite song by Lionel Peter Walker. Man, it's done great things. Also,
do you have any other songs? I'm just asking, not to be a jerk. I'm just wondering, I have more than one song that I like. I know Charlie's going to be like, I'm not having Paula on no more. She's done.
I get a lot of favorite songs, but for the podcast, this is definitely my favorite song. I just like it, and it's going to stay with me as long as I'm podcasting.
See, now I would think more of like Frank Sinatra. I want to do it my way.
It's a good song. That's a Chops Turner song. So, and he'll actually be my guest. He'll be my guest next Tuesday. On the Really Charlie podcast, so I can't wait to do that show. But he is a huge Frank Sinatra fan.
Yeah, so am I.
And he does it well. He sings his songs very well. He does it justice. Some people try to sing like Frankie, and they just, shouldn't have sang. Shouldn't have picked up the mic. But Chops Turner does amazing things with it.
Awesome. You have a good night, Charlie, and we will definitely connect. See you on Sunday. Everyone, good night. Be safe, be kind, and again, anything you need, achievegreatness88.org. We would love your support because we cannot continue to do what we do without it.
Exactly. And on that note, love you. God bless. Take care. All right.
It's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yo, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Bump into your broadcast, grab a chair, fill your glass. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yo, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Bump into your broadcast, grab a chair, fill your glass.